Promise, which looks at a feminine alternative to the hero story, but it also compares the two and how they interact. And I started on a hero's journey.
Okay. All right. This is Julia Widup with Seeker's Journey TV, and Kim Hudson is going to be telling us about her book and how the hero's journey model improved or affected, anyway, her writing. Go ahead, Kim.
Hi. So when I grew up in the 70s. I guess that's probably the best place to start. And when I started facing the world and deciding what my place was going to be in it, it was a time science ruled. They were just figuring out plate tectonics and genetic things, and women were finding their place in the world. It was really a hero's journey. It was a challenge to make our way and find a place of belonging. And I grew up being taught that was a job that we all had as young women, that we needed to change the world to make sure there was more places for women. So what I did was I became a geologist, and I worked in northern Canada, the Yukon. Yukon's where I grew up, and so that was an easy one actually. Northern Ontario, northern British Columbia. Helicopters, grizzly bears, definitely a hero's journey. Yeah, and it was amazing. It was a real privilege to work with men in camps of up to 60 men, and every day we would get up and we knew that we were facing danger, and it totally followed all the steps of Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, where you start with an ordinary world. You know that there's something of value. There's something that you need to preserve and protect, and that was the need to find resources to keep the economy going. And so we'd get out there and jump in our helicopters and land on glaciers and the whole 9 yards, and look for gold, literally. So it was good, but it was also it was a lot of hardship. There was a lot of tests. I was constantly tested for the fact that women didn't belong in the field. And it was something that I had to prove again and again and again. But one thing I learned was that when you create allies for yourself, that you find who you're working with, and you find that you have a common goal, and you focus on what you share as far as what you want to get out of things, you can work together, and you can develop teams and really enjoy the experience because you become stronger together.
So you would recommend that people try to find allies actively?
Totally. And an ally is somebody that shares the same goal as you. And you don't actually have to really like them. It's not the same as a friend. An ally is somebody that you can respect and you can work with. And you need to share a goal. And that's another thing heroes definitely need. Is it can't just be about being. That's actually a feminine journey. A hero needs a goal. You need to understand that you're working hard. You will work until you're ready to drop, until you reach the goal. You don't have a goal, you're just dropping. Right? You're not actually knowing where you're getting. So I learned that. Another thing, actually, I learned was that you have to break things down into manageable challenges. You want to find what is the challenge just beyond what I already know that I can do, and then you go for it. And that teaches you that you can push back the boundaries of what you know you can do. If it's too big, then you're overwhelmed. And actually, the coward archetype starts to get more of a foothold. If you think that everything is way bigger than you are, you eventually will become more childlike or try and live through other people. So,
any of those archetypes can take over in the right circumstances.
Right, yeah, and that is the key. Like, what I found eventually in geology was that there was a part of me that was being ignored. I was so heroic all the time that I knew that I eventually actually sort of kind of found that I just didn't belong anywhere, and it was kind of wearing me down. And I recognized that I needed to do another journey, which I call the Virgin's Journey, which is to look inside yourself, know, separate from how I could save the world, what is the gift of me? Like, what do I have to bring? What would I do with my life? If it was about following my bliss, as Campbell always says. And so that was my next journey. And out of that, I ended up writing my book. But it was interesting, because even in that, I recognized, so I found what I wanted to do, but I was called upon again for a hero's journey, because I had to step outside my comfort zone and learn to market and to do public speaking. And I realized I was terrified of that. Like, in geology, at least I was like in the bush. In the real world was really scary.
You were terrified of that in the beginning probably, but learned to overcome it.
Yes, and now I'm trying to do the same thing with public speaking and marketing and self-promotion. So again, we do these hero's journeys. We do them in all levels. Like, my mom has had like 6 cancers, and I've dealt with, how to fight for a person and navigate the medical system, all that kind of stuff. So I've done it in big ways and in tiny ways. Like, and it's the same journey. It's just the lessons you learn from the small things you carry into the bigger things. I knew I was coming on the show, so I tried to give an example. And there was a time when I decided that my daughter and I should go into this bike race, this road relay that is in the Yukon that goes from Canada to Alaska. And it takes like a day, and you do an 8-person relay. And it goes into high altitude, and there's glaciers coming down, and they're long. My life is about 40 kilometers and quite, up and down. And I went out and I gave it a try about 2 weeks before, which is sort of crossing the first threshold. I'd been sort of casually training, thinking, it won't be a problem. There was a headwind. It was bloody cold, and I just about died, and I only did like 10 kilometers. And I realized this could be seriously bad. Like, there's 8 people counting on me, and I'm trying to bond with my daughter, and this is not going to work if I'm not even able to finish. So I got up, and I realized I'm afraid of failure. And because of that, it was easy for me to get up at like 6 in the morning, jump on my bike, and head up a hill. Because I had 2 weeks. I had 2 weeks to get in better shape than I was today. And it motivated me, that test that I went through, and then you prepare, and you make it through, like you have that ordeal, and it teaches you just what you need to do, and then you just do it. You just know there's something that needs to be done here, and you just do it. And I remember I was biking up a hill, and I remember that my body, I was in tune with my body, like I could feel I had some power there, and it felt fantastic. And I wouldn't have gotten there had I not taken on a challenge that was just beyond what I normally think I'm capable of. And eventually the race was great, and I finished it, no problem. So we do these things all the time. Yeah. The key is to know when you face your fear, to know what to do with it, to break it down into smaller pieces, to walk through the fear, knowing that you will expand the sense of your mortality. You will expand your sense of what you can do as a human being every time you push through that fear.
That's wonderful. So your keys are finding allies and pushing beyond what you think you can do.
Yes, when you feel the fear. But first you have to break it into things that are just beyond what you already know you can do. And so that you have a chance of success each time. But don't make it too easy on yourself.
And what's your book about?
Well, my book is about, and it actually happened when I was I did all the geology work, and then I discovered that there was a part of me that wasn't having any expression. And I think it's because we all have a masculine and a feminine side, and I had been really focused on my masculine side, which is the heroic side. And so what I did was I started writing. I started with The Artist's Way. I don't know if you've ever seen that book, but through journaling, it teaches you to look inside yourself, and it's that whole terra incognito that Jung describes. And I discovered that I would love to write. So I'm about like week 12 or something. It says fill out the form, which I took quite literally. I'm reading it later. I think it was meant to be more figurative. But I applied to go to writing school, and I figured I would go to writing for film and television because it's all dialogue, and I thought, how hard can that be? Turned out it was very hard. But I got in, and on the very first day, they taught us about Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey, and I was in love. I just thought, this is the most fantastic stuff. It spoke to me right away. I could identify it in movies, I could identify it in my life, and then they went on to say that all story from all time was this hero's journey, and I thought, wait a minute, that can't be right. Like, we've been through all these other archetypes that were more feminine, and I thought, what happens to all of those? And I was in this class of about 300 young students, and I was definitely the oldest person there. And bravely, I put up my hand. I was like, well, what about the feminine journey? And they told me that it was passive and internal, and it doesn't make a good movie. And I thought, okay, wait a minute, that can't be right. So I set out to discover, what does it look like when we are activating our feminine journey? And I studied in Switzerland, and I studied at a local university, took courses in mythology and psychology and feminism and anything I could think of that was connected. And I came up with 13 beats that show how you go on a virgin's journey. And that became my book, called The Virgin's Promise. So it's interesting because they turned out to be actually polar opposites of each other. The hero is about learning what his community needs and rising to that challenge, and through doing that he learns more about himself. He pushes back the boundaries of what he knows to be mortality. Mm-hmm. The virgin her community wants her to be a certain way, and her journey is to look inside herself and know what that seed is of what is authentically her, to learn what that is, and to bring it to life even against the wishes of her community. But the interesting thing is, when she's true to herself, she brings something that nobody expected, that only she could have probably brought, and makes the world a better place.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful.
Thank you.
Wonderful. I'm looking forward to reading your book.
Thank you. Yeah. So I have a blog too, so you can read about the different beats, the 13 of them. Something that might just be interesting, because we talked earlier about the hero having allies. Mm-hmm. The difference is that the virgin has friends. And so sorry, am I doing something? Okay, so the contrast is, heroes need allies, they share a common goal, they don't even really have to like each other, whereas heroes have allies, virgins have friends. Friends are people that actually see something of value in you just for being yourself. And this is what the virgin needs to know about herself, and she needs to be supported for who she is, and that's what friends do.
And why did you use the label virgin?
Yeah, that was a big decision, because I wanted to make sure that it was that everybody recognized that they had this in them. It's not just for women, like we all have a masculine and a feminine side. Uh-huh. And the other choices were like princess or maiden, the crone, the mother. So virgin was the one that was most accessible to both males and females. And also, when you think, the original meaning of virgin is that it is to be of intrinsic worth, to know that you are of value just for being yourself. And we still have a bit of that meaning left when we talk about a virgin forest, but a forest is beautiful for being a forest. We don't think it's beautiful because it could be a house someday. And it's the same for the virgin archetype. Each of us is of value just for being ourselves. And that's what we need to discover to feel like we have a place in the world, a sense of belonging.
I like that.
Thank you.
And how long has your book been out?
So, yeah. I think we're losing some audio.
You're not hearing me? Okay. How long has your book been out?
It came out 2 years ago now. Wow. No. Yes, 2 years ago now. Wow, that's amazing. It was April 2010. And it's with Michael Weesey Productions. Yeah.
Okay. And where can people buy the book?
If you go to mwp.com, Michael Weesey Productions, there's a link to the book and a free webinar that I give on it. And otherwise, it's available on Amazon or Chapters.
Okay.
I also give workshops, and I'm giving a workshop in Vancouver and at Hollyhock on how to apply these archetypes in life, which I'm really excited about.
That sounds fun.
You can look that through hollyhock.ca.
Hollyhock.ca, okay. Okay, so this has launched a whole new career. I think we did lose our audio. Okay, I think we're about finished here, and thank you so much for being on the show. And I hope you will be able to be in the chat room on the night that we air the show so that if people have any questions. She's not hearing that. Okay.
May 9th?
Okay, I'll
yes,
have to let you know on that,
to being in the chat room.
I'll have to let you know for sure on that. But, so if you're watching this, just look for Kim Hudson in the chat room, and you can ask her questions. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you. It was really nice to meet you.